All right, hello again. This is Jeff Scott of Blackhawk Technical College. I've been starting to go through the textbook, Android Studio Development Essentials, that we have for the 152, 156 Mobile Web Dev Android class for the spring 2016 semester at Blackhawk Technical College. I'm into Chapter 3, so I'm going to go over this. When I have to, I will go back to the PDF here, but I am just going to go in and File, Programs. All right, there's my Android Studio. There it is. So I'm going to right mouse click, drag it out over here and create a shortcut. So I've got a shortcut there. And I'm also going to pin that both to the taskbar and to my start menu. So I should have it. There it is. It's in a bunch of places now. So I'm starting up Android Studio for the first time. There it is. So the goal in this chapter, as they mention on page 17, is to create an Android application and compile and run it. This chapter will cover the creation of a simple Android application project using Android Studio. Once the project has been created, a later chapter will explore the use of the Android emulator environment to perform a test run of the app. So we're just trying to create the app in this chapter. So the first step, as they say on the bottom of page 17, is to create a new project. So we're going to do that as soon as this up and loads for the first time. So here's our welcome screen. So we are going to come in here. This is the same thing that you see in figure 3.1 on the bottom of page 17. Once this window appears, Android Studio is ready for a new project to be created. To create a new project, simply click on the Start a New Android Studio Project. And that should display the first screen. Same one that's shown here is what's shown in figure 3.2 on the top of page 18 in our text. In this new project window, we are supposed to set our app here to Android Sample. The application name is the name by which the application is referenced and identified within Android Studio. It's also the name that would be used if this completed application were to go on sale in the Google Play Store. The package name, again, what is recommended is, we talked about this back in the days of Eclipse, the reverse URL. So I'm going to do edu.blackhawk.jscott. Okay, you've seen that stuff before. The project location, as it says, it will default to a location named Android Studio Projects in your home directory. All right. So it's over here. I don't really like where this is looking right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. And let's see. Come over to here and go to my D drive. Go to Users, go to JScott, go to Desktop, and what do I have here? Nothing that I want to use. So, I want to get back to the actual desktop here, and of course I don't have that open. Okay, home directory, new folder, there we go. And I'm just going to call this Android. Click OK. There it is. All right. Okay, so I've changed it to D:\users JScott Android, and it's going to put Android sample inside of that Android area. That's what I wanted. That's what we will be doing as a class. I just think that's the best thing to do. So that'll be our project location setting. I'm going to click Next. All right. On the Form Factors screen, which is what you see right now, it says Enable the phone and tablet option. Well, it already is enabled. And set the minimum SDK to Android 2.2 Froyo. Well, what we've been using in here for our minimum has been 16.4.1 Jelly Bean, so I think we'll keep it at that. They mention the reason for using an older release is that it ensures the finished app will be able to run on the widest possible Android devices. That's the good news. The bad news is if there's any new features and functionality that have been added since those minimum things, they won't be able to use it. They mention there's a Help Me Choose link right here, and they show this in Figure 3.3 on page 19. And that shows you how many users are using what version right now. All right, so you can see the majority are still in here in the Jelly Bean range. So if we use that, if we use Jelly Bean 4.1, which is I think what we chose there, 16, 17, 33, and 18 is 51, and 19 is 70, and 21, we're hitting 91% of our users, it looks like. Well, that's the API level, I'm sorry. So 73, 55, etc. All right, so I'm going to keep these out. All right, click OK. That gets us back to where we were. It says, since the project is not intended for Google TV, Google Glass, or wearable devices, we can leave all the remaining options disabled and click Next. All right. The next step, is to define the initial activity to be created. A range of different activity types is available when developing Android applications. The master detail option will be covered in a later chapter. For the purposes of this example, simply select the option to create a blank activity, which is our one that's created here by default anyway. So with that option selected, click Next. The previous screen that I just showed you, this screen right here, that's shown on the top of page 20 as Figure 3-4. And the next screen right here, this is what's shown as Figure 3-5 on the bottom of page 20. They tell you to name the activity and title. They want us to name this Android Sample Activity. And you can see that once we named it here under the activity name, it automatically changed our title name as well. Activity Android Sample, what they show right there for the layout is kept. Menu Android Sample is also kept. So right now, everything that I put in here, all right, are the exact same settings that you see on the bottom of page 20. Finally, click Finish to initiate the project creation process. At this point, Android Studio has created a minimal example application project and has opened the associated window. Well, it'll come up in a second. Now, it may be taking a bit more time than normal because this is the first time I've done this. So this is, again, what we're going to be doing on the first day of class. In an ideal world, we'll get as much of these first 7 chapters done as possible, if not in the first week, or if not in the first period, at least in the first week. So you can see it's still building a bunch of stuff for us, and Loading the project. All right. Okay, as you can see right here on the screen, it says tip of the day. And I'm not going to read it to you. You can see this. Previous tip, next tip, close. I'm going to not show that on startup, and I'm just going to close. Still is creating some stuff for us in here. I'm on page 21, and my hope is we get all done here, and this eventually comes up. It's going to look as it does in figure 3-6 on page 21. What's nice about this class as opposed to the iOS class is there are, I believe, 58 chapters in this book. So let's start doing the math here. If in the first few weeks we can get done with the first 20 or so chapters, we're going to be in great shape. They do have projects that they do in the book here. I have gone through a couple of them. All right, but that's just been reading. I'm building the first one. As you can see, that's why this is taking so long. If I'd have known that the first time up this was going to take as long as it takes, then rather than filling up my time with a lot of conversation like I'm doing right now, I would have done the project on my own, so I would have had all this stuff done at least one time. All right. What we're going to do basically in here is just make a couple superficial changes to this project. We're going to change the hello world that comes up to a different string. We're going to move it around on the screen. We're going to change the background color. And that's pretty much will be it for this chapter. Then using this same project, I'll go through chapter 4, which is a tour of the Android Studio user interface. Fairly short chapter. Then we'll go in and try to create an AVD. All right, and they show that in chapter 5. Then in chapter 6, we try to test this on an actual physical Android device. All right, and I do have my keys here, but I have done very little with the actual devices. I usually rely on John's help, and John's not here right now. So I'll try it, and we'll see, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, you'll never see the tape anyway. All right, I'm hoping this is just about finished. There we go. All right. So, the picture you see on your screen right now, even though it's still initializing the rendering library, I'm on section 3.4 on the top of page 21. At this point, Android Studio has created a minimal application project and opened the main window. Like I said, it's still initializing, as you see right here. There it is. Good deal. It says low disk space, so I'll have to check that out. All right. The newly created project and references to associated files are listed in the project tool window, located on the left-hand side of the main project window. The project tool window has a number of modes for which information can be displayed. So what I did was I just clicked right here where it's got the word Android under Android sample. This shows me the same thing that you see in figure 3.7 on the bottom of page 21. This setting is controlled by the drop-down menu. If the panel is not currently in Android mode, click on this to switch it to Android mode. Well, you can see I already am in Android mode, so I'm just going to leave it alone. The example project created for us when we selected the option to create an activity consists of a user interface containing a label that will read hello world when the application is executed. The next step is to modify the user interface of our application so that it displays a larger text view object with a different message than the one provided by default for us. The user interface they mention for the activity is stored in a file named Android activity_Android_sample.xml, which is located under the app res layout folder. Using the project tool window, locate this file. So come into here. All right. You can see the stuff that's in here. And I go under values. I guess this is under layout, so I was wrong. Under layout, there it is. Activity Android sample file. Once located, they say here, double-click on the file and load it into the User Interface Design tool, which will appear in the center. So I double-clicked. And there it is. There's that, and there's that. Okay, good. In the toolbar across the top of the designer window is a menu that's currently set to Nexus 4. Well, I'm going to have to, this thing keeps coming up, so I'm going to have to find where that is and see if I can clean that up a little bit. So let's see. d:/users/JScott/.AndroidStudio 1.3/system. All right, so give me a second here. Let's see if we can figure out why that is giving me a problem with disk space. So d:/users/JScott.AndroidStudio 1.3 system. That's where it says. So I've got something in here that, according to this, is taking up a lot of space. Well, that's 570K, so that shouldn't be the problem. There has to be something that's in here under either my config or under my system that's taking up a lot of space. 2 meg, 199 meg. So definitely it seems like there's something in there. That sure doesn't seem to be it, but there seems to be something in here, so I'm going to have to look through here, or I have John or somebody look through here to figure out why I'm getting that message. Just says low disk space on the system directory partition. So, all right. Oh boy. I can't remove this and I can't make it go away, it looks like, because it keeps coming back. So in the toolbar across the top of the designer window is a menu that's currently set to Nexus 4, which of course I don't see. A wide range of other devices is also available. To change the orientation from landscape to portrait, use the drop-down immediately to the right of the device selection. Well, as you can see, this is going to take some learning for all of us, including me. All right. I'm just going to go in and start making my changes, okay? As can be seen, this should look familiar to you because this looks almost the same way we had the stuff set up previously when we had been working on, there's the Nexus 4. All right, and there's how we can change it to landscape. Okay, so you can see that. Put it back to portrait. All right, the layout already includes a label that displays hello world, a hello world exclamation point message. Running down the left-hand side of the panel is a palette containing different categories of user interface components, such as buttons, labels, etc. All the stuff that you see right here. It should be noted, however, that not all of the user interface components are obviously visible to the user, such as layouts. Android supports a variety of layouts to provide different levels of control over how the visual interface components are positioned and managed on the screen. The current design is being used with a relative layout. All right. So the user interface currently consists of a relative layout with a single child in the form of a text view object. All right. The first step in modifying this is to delete the text view component from the design. Begin by clicking on the text view object, so I can again click either here or I can click in here. All right. Like that, so either one's going to do it. Once selected, press the delete key on the keyboard to remove the object from the layout, and you can see that it's gone. In the palette, locate the widgets category. There we are. Click and drag a large text object and drop it in the center of the user interface design and use the green marker lines to indicate that it's centered. So large text. And as you can see, it looks like it's now centered. All right. This now looks like it does in figure 3-11 on page 24. The Android Studio provides an alternative to dragging and dropping. You can also select the required object and then simply click on the layout in the location. So in other words, we could have put it here also. We could have clicked and dragged it and moved it over there. We've done this in other classes. The next step is to change the text that is currently displayed in the text view component. Double-click on the object in the design layout to display the text and ID panel as illustrated in figure 312. So if I double-click on here, there it is. They want us to change it from large text to welcome. You have to spell it right. Welcome to Android Studio. All right, you say, well, you can't see that. Well, if I drag that over enough, you can. Okay? At this point, it is important to explain the light bulb next to the text view object. Right there. This indicates a possible problem and provides some recommended solutions. So in a way, at least, what this is like when we have the IntelliSense or the kind of like IntelliSense in Visual Studio or the intelligent help that's provided for us in Eclipse. If you click on the icon, it should tell us what the problem is. All right? And this whole thing deals with what we've talked about in the past, and that is internationalization. Remember, we're not supposed to put our strings right in the code itself. They're supposed to go into our strings.xml file, and that's what it's telling us. If we click on the arrow to the right of the warning message, it displays a menu of possible fixes. So clicking there, that shows you the fixes. This is the same thing shown on the top of page 26 in the book. From the menu, select the Extract String Resource option, which is the first one here. And that'll display the extract resource dialog. All right, and what they say is in here, For the resource name, enter welcome string. All right. And then click OK. The string should now be added to our strings.xml file. So if we go down under values, double click on strings, there's the welcome string we just added. All right. This isn't new to you because we've done it similar ways before. All right. Reviewing the layout and resource files, the middle of page 26. Before moving on to the next chapter, we are going to look at some internal aspects of the user interface design and resource handling. In the previous section, we made changes to the user interface by modifying the XML file. In fact, all the designer was doing was providing a user-friendly way to edit the underlying XML content. In practice, there's no reason you can't modify your XML directly. You've seen this before. We've got here text. If we go over here to design, or go to text rather, okay, now we see over here exactly how this looks. As they mentioned on the bottom of page 26 and going on to page 27, the author says here, as can be seen from the structure of the XML file, the user interface consists of a relative layout which is the parent of the text view product. We can also see the text property of the text view now set, all right, now set to our welcome resource. Well, it looks like it isn't, but I'm not sure if that's because it hasn't been saved or not. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's been changed in here. It shows it as being changed in the book. Now that's funny because if I mouse over it, notice what it says. String welcome string. So I'm going to leave it the way it is. All right. What we are asked to do is to come over here. We've got that tools, content, etc. Padding bottom, tools, content, right there. And we're asked to add yet another thing underneath here. And that is Android background, no colon, equal, and they want us to put in here pound FF 2438. All right. And they're showing you right away, this is something new in here that we haven't seen before, at least not in the Eclipse world. It says, note the color of the preview changes in real time to match the setting of the XML file. Notice also, it says, that a small red square appears in the left-hand margin that contains the color setting. So, right here. This is a visual cue to the fact that the color red has been set on a property. So then they say, go back in here and change this again and make it A0FF28. And the author says that should change it to green both here and in our arrow. Finally, use the project view to locate the strings.xml file. Well, I've already opened that, so there it is right there. It says currently it should read as follows. The app name is Android Sample. We've got the Hello World in there. We've got action settings, and we've got our welcome string. It says, as a demonstration of resources, change the string value currently assigned to the welcome string, and then return to the designer. Note, they're saying, so let's change this to welcome to the new Android Studio. All right, so we'll save that, and we will move back again to our XML file, and we'll look at it in design mode, and notice it's changed to welcome to the new Android Studio. Okay? There is also a quick way to access a resource referenced in an XML file. With the designer's tool still in text mode, so we'll put it back into text mode. Click on the @string welcome string property so that it highlights. Then press Control B. Android Studio will subsequently open the strings.xml file. Still not sure why that hasn't changed. There, now it's changed. Okay. Control B. And the Control B moved me into the strings file. So you see you've got a way that you can move back and forth. This is great because this is going to be a fun learning experience, I think at least, for all of us. So far in this chapter, the layout has only been previewed on a representation of a Nexus 4 device. As previously discussed, the layout can be tested for other devices by making selections from the device menu. Another useful option provided by this menu is to preview all screens. So if we go back into our file here, and we go back into design mode here, and we go down to here, and we choose preview all screens. All right, now it's showing you the same way that it looks in figure 3-15 on the bottom of page 28. All right, so it'll eventually fill all these in. To revert to the single one again, go back and choose, go back to here, and choose the remove previews option. Okay? All right. So, as they mentioned in the summary in chapter 3 on page 29, while this was not excessively complex, a number of steps, as you could see, were involved in setting up the Android environment. After we performed these steps, we walked through a sample example to make sure the environment was correctly installed and configured. In this chapter, we created a simple application and then used the Android Studio UI Designer to modify it, to modify the user interface layout. We also explored the resource files. We looked at the underlying XML. All right, and they mentioned that although that preview is nice, there's no substitute for actually running this. So we're going to do that in a later chapter. Before we do that, however, chapter 4 will take us on a detour to give us a guided tour of the Visual Studio user interface. Fairly short chapter. All right, so I'll be back with that in just a couple minutes using this same file that we're working on right here.